Hi, this is Marcus and Juan for our fourth podcast video. Real quick, I just wanted to say thank you to subscribers and people that have taken the time to watch, our hour and almost sometimes hour and 40-minute long videos. We really appreciate it. Um, First off, I just wanted to go about this video and why we're talking about it. Uh, the YouTuber talks about the mixed race hybrid concepts of natives in Mexico. And we are just going to kind of slowly pick apart his views because we personally believe that they are inaccurate um, because we are natives. Um, and yeah, I'm going to let Juan talk a little bit and we're going to start the video.
Yeah, so what he says in the video, a lot of it isn't exactly wrong. I'm aware that we're mixed. We're not denying that, but we're saying why that's a harmful idea. The whole like mixed thing creates a new identity. I think that's nonsense, and that's not applied to other races here in the United States. So we're just gonna dig into that. But one thing is, I noticed a little bit of haters, which is kind of amusing here. Where they're like, "Oh, you look white in the video, or you don't look native." There's something called this. Yeah, I'm going to show you something, guys. You see what's happening? Yeah, there's something called the white ass screen. Also, there's pretty white ass lights above me, and yeah, you lose a little bit of melanin during the winter. Your skin gets a little lighter. I'm 51%, so if that's not enough, nothing is. Like, let's not be ridiculous here. Anyways, I just wanted to
And,
point that out.
and add on to that, in history books that maybe you might or might not have read, there are a lot of natives that are lighter than others. The Mapuches, I hope I'm not butchering that, in southern South America near Chile are known to be pretty light. So yeah, just adding on to that. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and start this video up um, right now.
I am the famous American, and we need to have this discussion. We need to have this understanding. Now, let's begin the conversation off with the mental concept. It's a mental concept of tribalism. The way our world works now is people stand behind a tribe and hurl stones at the other side who have a different viewpoint of them. They demonize them. They say, you're ignorant, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're racist. They'll say these things to the other side. It could be an opposing sports team, a opposing political side. That's what people do. What I have noticed, anytime I talk about this, that's what people from outside of the United States will do to me. They think, oh, he's another ignorant American. He's from a different tribe. He's the enemy. Let me go ahead and leave a comment saying that he's ignorant, stupid, wrong, etc. But here's the concept. Here in the United States, the way that Mexicans are perceived is completely different than it is outside of the United States. So while I would actually agree with you, you're right, Mexicans are not a race. In fact, Mexicans actually a nationality. I agree with you. That's the correct answer. Outside of the United States. Within the United States, it's completely different, a completely different understanding. And if you bring your mentality to the United States, thinking that and saying that, you will confuse people here. Here in this nation, it's a different understanding. And this keeps coming up, so I feel that I need to keep talking about it because people are still involved in this conversation. People are still bringing this up and want to talk.
Okay, we're going to confuse people, right? We're going to confuse people. People are already confused about this. I've seen very ignorant Americans, like what he's saying, that they'll consider Mexican a race. And anyone with any sense knows that's not the case. Mexican is not a race. You filled out, we all fill out government documents from the time that we're fucking like 5, and we circle in bubbles for race. I mean, no one's ever seen Mexican as a race. What we're doing here is trying to eliminate that confusion. Okay. And I've offered this simplicity to some people because it's really easy. I use myself a lot. If somebody is around my shade of color, maybe a little lighter, they're native. If they're really, really light, they're just a white person. If they're Marcus's shade, because they're darker than me, they're native. That's kind of the logic I use. It's really not that complicated, but people like to make this really complicated when it's not.
Yeah, the issue that I see with, at least here in the US, when we think of someone as a, Latino or Hispanic, is that their automatic thought is that maybe someone that looks like us, but in reality, Latino and Hispanic is not an actual race, and pretty much anyone of any ethnic group can be considered Hispanic. Um, I think that's a major flaw that was, incorporated from, the U.S. government into, census and racial labeling. So we're going to go back to that video and carry on.
Talk about it. So let's do that. Here's what I'm telling you. Mexicans are a hybrid race. That's what I'm telling you. I'm telling you that if you have a Mexican person, take a DNA test, and let's say whether they're in the nation of Mexico or whether they're in the nation of the United States, and maybe they were born in the United States, but they're a first generation Mexican American. Either way, take a DNA test. What is it going to show? It's probably going to show around 60% Native American, specifically Aztec, Mayan, etc. And then the rest, the remainder, largely Iberian, Spanish, etc. Maybe a little.
I'm going to stop him right there before he finishes, because a lot of what he just said is extremely inaccurate. Labeling all Mexicans as being half Spanish, half native is not true. In southern provinces of Mexico, you have at least 10, maybe 20 million natives that have very little blood, not from anyone, including Spanish. And I think a lot of people tend to forget that.
Yeah, and what I'll add is like what he has to say in terms of that split, which I'm surprised he didn't go for a straight 50-50 split like most people do. He went 60-40 and said that you're more indigenous on average. I give him credit for that. The split, like the whole 50-50, close to half freaking split, you find that a lot up north because there was more Spaniards up north in northern Mexico. Again, I'm 51%, 43% European. So you find that split more further up north. But if you go like Mexico City, any of those surrounding areas, the bulk majority of Mexico, you're going to find people that are easily 70% or higher. Like we're talking about like almost 3/4, basically the average person. So they're not really hybrids. If you want to argue that, then you'd have to say that Black people here in the United States are hybrids when they are all about 24% white. And I don't think this gentleman considers mixed Black people either that are like 50-50. I don't think he considers them hybrid races. I think he still considers them Black. So that's why I'm saying like we're just picking apart these inconsistencies. Like we don't. What's the point in saying that we're hybrids when we are not considered white at all? Like you go down to, let's say, Coleman, Alabama. I'm 43% European. You think they notice that? You think they see any of that? You can't even really. You can tell with some of my features, but they just see brown. They just see the indigenous part, and they hate that. And it's the same way with Black people. That's the reason why they don't consider themselves hybrid or take pride in the white part or any of that. It's the same exact situation. It's no different. So there's no sense in really calling us hybrids for all those reasons.
And to add on to that, I'll add in a quote from my favorite professor, Dr. Jack Forbes. You could also make the same statement for Europeans, Spaniards, and calling them hybrids as well, and not white. Many Spaniards, the DNA consists of not just Iberian, but Middle Eastern blood from the Moors, and from Anglos and other ethnic groups from Europe. Or wouldn't they be considered mixed or hybrids or mestizos as well? It seems to just be solely focused on people from South and Central America. And again, I've said this before, this is pushed very much by the governments of these countries to make us forget our native identity. So it's quite sad.
A little bit of Italian, something like that, maybe even Jewish perhaps. But specifically, we're going to see around half Native American, around half Spanish, European, but specifically Iberian Spanish. Specifically.
At least he
And
acknowledges
yes,
we're
I'm
Native American.
recognizing Spain is part of Europe. I'm recognizing that. That's another thing people love to hurl tomatoes at me about. Yes, I am recognizing Spain is a nation that is part of Europe.
Yeah, a lot of dumbass white people don't believe that.
Highlighting Spain of all the countries in Europe.
I also want
for
to hurl a
people who are
tomato.
of what I'm calling the hybrid race, Mexican. If you are a Mexican, whether you're in Mexico or you're an American in the United States, but your lineage doesn't extend beyond Mexican culture, heritage, etc. It's not like somebody Chinese slipped in and then no. I get it. Believe me, I get it. There are people who immigrated from China to Mexico 3 generations ago. And these people speak Spanish. They have a Mexican accent. They look Chinese. They have the traits of a typical Chinese person. But culturally, they're Mexican. I get it. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what a typical Mexican person looks like. That within itself is a hybrid race, is what it is. Now, I admit, I acknowledge, race is a social construct. We made it up, yet there is science to back it up. You can look at a typical person of Mexican heritage versus a person of typical Japanese heritage. They're going to look different. Or throw someone in Germany. The person in Germany is more likely to have blue eyes and blonde hair than the person in Mexico. So people love to overanalyze this, but it's pretty simple. People from Mexico are a hybrid race. If we're not counting all the outliers and all the exceptions to the rule of people who immigrated from different places, predominantly, and you can look this up on any DNA test website, like where I took mine through, was it MyHeritage? They have a map, and they show that most people from Mexico test showing they're about half Native American and they're about half European, specifically Iberian Spanish, specifically. Hybrid race.
Just pause real quick. I would like to know who exactly created this test and took these samples.
Well, here's the thing. I've taken MyHeritage before, which he mentions, right? And he's talking about MyHeritage. Well, MyHeritage is criticized for overestimating native DNA. So I don't know what samples he's looking at or how many people they sampled. What was the region they sampled from? Did they pick people that just looked really Spaniard? I mean, because there's also bias in these countries. And I just think by society in general to purport this false narrative that, this mestizaje bullshit, this whole more Spanish bullshit, because that's seen as better. So I have a problem with that. But just to illustrate why there's criticism with MyHeritage is on Ancestry, I got straight up 50% Native American. On MyHeritage, I got 69%. So obviously there's a huge jump. So I don't believe the whole it's half and half on MyHeritage, because MyHeritage really overestimates the native side. So I don't believe that either. And again, what regions? So that's the major issue. And he keeps saying it's really simple hybrid race and all this. It's not really. It's dude, you're making it more complicated. It's really simple. I'll fix it for you. It's really simple. You just have a bunch of Native Americans and you have some white people. That's it. It's that easy. You look at a light-skinned black person. Oh, it's a black person. Same thing with me. I'm a Native American. I'm just a little lighter than Marcus. Still Native American. It's really simple. You don't got to complicate it with this whole hybrid anything.
And I also feel that this man would be very much against what we're saying about wanting to identify as Native as well. He would probably argue back that we're some sort of hybrid and can't. I think that he's spoon-fed so much of this mestizaje hybrid, like you said, bullshit, that he would argue, against us. And what he doesn't understand apparently is that majority of Mexico is native. It's made of native people, regardless of if they're 60% native or 50%. Again,
Right.
these names.
And I'll throw this in because he may not know this, and a lot of viewers don't know this. The vast bulk of tribes in the United States require 25% native blood. There are some that require 50%. The highest requiring tribe is 62%. But again, the bulk is 25 or less. Every single person that you test out average is going to have 50%, or they're going to be close to half, like as in like 39-40 type of split, 44-45 type of split. So it's like, it's silly to say that we're not Native Americans to hold us to a different standard when other natives in the continental US are held to a much lower standard. You know what I mean? It's just silly. And again, the whole thing with black people, they're not 100% black. Most of them are 1/4 white. So it's dumb. It's dumb. And the only reason I see this guy or anybody else that would argue with our line of thinking is based off of fear of acknowledging what we really are. Because if you acknowledge what we are, that commands respect, because we're the original inhabitants and we've always been mistreated as a people here. Everyone from Central America and South America that immigrates here is always mistreated. You're a dirty savage, you're a foreigner, you're a piece of shit, you come here to steal resources, you don't belong here. So if you acknowledge the American, that's going to fear of all that hatred that's been thrown at us in the past, because it's seen as like, oh, well, you're legitimizing us at that point. But facts are facts. Like, if you're going to go based off this hybrid thinking, you need to apply it to everything. Once you do that, then come back to us. But I know that's not what people are going to do, because they don't operate that way.
That's right. And, it's pushed in, as I said before, all media, through the government, and they encourage this. And that's why we're here to dismantle it. We're going to go ahead and finish up our
Specifically,
our friend
Iberian
here.
Spanish, specifically hybrid race. Your comments belong right here.
Oh, I'll leave a comment.
Oh my God. Yeah, no. I mean, look, at the very least, he acknowledged that we're Native Americans. He didn't try to come up with some other shit like, oh, you're like half Iberian and half mestizo. Because I've seen people do that to be like fucking disingenuous or just to play fucking games. So at least he's like, oh yeah, they're half Native American. Okay, that's a step in the right direction. You acknowledge that we are, But again, being half, like, so what? We're still Native Americans either way. Don't matter if you're half. Like, that's one thing I don't get. Like, there's a lot of haters too, like, in our channel, but not just our channel, but a bunch of other places. It's like, since when did being 50% or half somehow not be enough? Like, that is an absolutely ridiculous notion. Like, do you guys realize how much 50% is? Like, you're talking about like half a fucking person. Like, and they look the part. They don't look like a white person. So it's like, you guys are fucking silly if you don't think 50% is enough.
And the sad thing is, so many native voices are excluded. I can point in one little fact here in a book that I saw about in Guatemalan political history. Mayans were excluded from being a part of any political organization or government. And if they were included, then it would almost look as if the natives have some sort of benefit, and that's not what the government is really in favor for. A lot of governments in South America are in favor for. So, and I'm sure this YouTuber would probably say the same thing about any country in Central America, that we're all hybrids. So, with that, I wanted to thank you all for watching our late night podcast. And again, if you like the video, we hope you look forward to seeing our next one coming out soon.
Yeah. For sure. Thank you for watching. We just want to make this one more of a lightning takedown here, instead of really drawn out. But again, for you haters again.
This is Marcus and Juan signing off. Thank you. Bye-bye.